Thank you, sir. And we're back, and geez, that's a long disclaimer. Hey, I just did something I never thought I would do. I snoozed Dudley and Bob's Facebook page for 30 days. CJ, when you come in, you gotta remind me to sit up and suck my gut in. It's like this. That's what I'm looking like.
Oh, you saw a picture of yourself and got mad and
I don't think it's real. I think my belly's flat. All right, I've made everybody be quiet off the air. And it was very awkward. We have entrepreneur, astronaut Richard Garriott, and we have we call him Flat Earth Andrew, not
right.
Andy, Andrew. And when we're debating flat Earth theory, and when we last left the show, and hang on because we still have 3-day Southwest, 3-day ACL passes, and what else was the big one? Third row WWE coming up. You held up your water bottle, Andrew, and you were trying to get everybody. What were you trying to? Can
I ask the question for you?
Sure.
Because I think it's a legitimate question, and I think there may be some science behind the answer. I think, Richard, what Andrew was asking, in a full moon phase, considering that the middle of what we see as the full moon, the middle of the moon would theoretically be closer to Earth than the edges of that full moon phase. Why isn't there a hot spot when we look at a full moon? Why does it look evenly lit? Why isn't the center of the full moon phase?
It's lit edge to edge, and so you have a single light source, which is the sun, pointing at a sphere, supposedly, which is the moon. And so,
do you not believe the moon is a sphere?
It could be. It could be.
But he's saying, why isn't it a little dimmer around the edges?
No,
I'm saying the
moon.
moon is self-illuminating.
And it probably is.
It's a light. It is self-illuminating, and you can measure moonlight. Moonlight, in direct moonlight, is actually colder than the shade under a tree.
Moonlight feels right.
What did you just say?
He thinks
moonlight is actually colder. It's been measured.
You're saying the moon casts a cold light.
That's right. Just like the sun casts a hot light, and in the shade of the sun, it's cooler. Well, in the moon, it's actually colder in direct moonlight if you're standing in the shade of the moon.
But by the way, this is another thing that any child go out and disprove. That statement is trivially disprovable.
No, it's not.
You can go
let him.
You can go out. You can go out, and if what you're saying is that moonlight is colder than the shadow, than something in the shade, you can take 2 thermometers. Go out at night.
Everybody's done that. That's why I'm saying it.
But if that were true, that's just silly talk, to be frank.
To the listeners, go look it up.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Andrew, that has very little to do with science? But you would admit that you're bringing in what would be kind of a newer way for humanity to see their existence, correct?
Right, and that's why...
So why is it that you don't approach it like how a teacher generally would in a class, and you say, I have some stuff, and here are some experiments we can do? You have an extremely condescending attitude, which is that we're all dumbasses for not getting that we haven't watched the same YouTube videos you are. If I were to go to college and pay, and then a professor, when I walked in, immediately was just like, all right, have you read these books? You haven't read these effing books? And so, do you understand why it's hard for people to grasp what you're saying, other than the fact that what you're saying is all falsifiably, I can't speak anymore.
Well, I just told the listeners, go decide for yourself. Go out.
Sure.
That seems to be your answer to everything. Because what you keep
Yeah.
saying is, I can't prove what I believe. You go read.
I could get the thermometers and put one over here and one over here. You can use the high-tech device that points the laser, right?
Yeah.
The gun.
Okay.
You can spot check temperature with that gun.
Okay.
Anybody
But when the moon is shining, it's covering everything within your vision. There's no spot to walk over to the moon.
No, but there's a shadow under the tree.
Yes,
so the moon would still cast a shadow. And
Right.
so what he's saying is that
it's cooler in the
it
shade
creates
of the moon.
coolness. No, he's saying the moonlight creates cold.
It's colder. Yeah.
When would light create cold?
It wouldn't, because it's electromagnetic radiation, which by definition will, if any, it's either going to be reflected or absorbed. Anything that's absorbed is going to create heat in the thing that absorbed it.
Right,
So,
and we are told that the moon reflects, what we're seeing is reflected sunlight, so it should be warmer in the direct moonlight.
Whether or not,
versus
by
shade.
the way, it was reflected light or it was its own light source, any light source, that light source on the ceiling of this room
Makes it hot.
is going to warm up the surface of this piece of wood. If you turn off those lights, the wood here in front of us will get cooler because there's no electromagnetic radiation.
Exactly.
warming it.
You just proved my point. So why is moonlight colder? And why
It's
is
not
it?
It's not. He was talking about
all
light
light,
rays.
all electromagnetic radiation of any kind under any wavelength that gets absorbed by something will warm it up.
Why do you keep looking at me and saying help?
I'm
Do you
saying
think
help.
that I?
Well,
Do you
help.
think?
I
Do you
tried
think
to
in
help.
all? Do you think in my 2 years of or 4+ years of trolling you over the years? Do you think that I'm on your side?
Okay, so-
I don't believe.
so-
I don't believe that there's an anchor on top of a mountain that proves that the Ark existed. That was the first thing you brought in here. I do
No,
adore
I
you.
brought it.
I actually adore you. I like having you in here because I like you as a person.
Yeah, so I wanna
But I don't
talk
believe
about
anything you bring in.
Okay,
Wait,
because
what
here's
about
what
edge to
Richard
edge
Garriott.
illumination?
Here's what I want to talk about. So, just before I came down here, my kids go to school in New York. So I took them out Saturday night or Sunday night.
you
Get my
never
first
come
out.
to see us again, are you?
And of course I am. And we went out, and I get these. There's apps that people have written that track all the satellites. And one of the things you can do when you track satellites is that right at sunrise or sunset, or just before the sun comes up, or just after it goes down, things that are high up in the sky, especially like near Earth orbit, are still illuminated by the sun, even though it's shadow where you are. And what that means is that creates a circumstance where it's actually easy for you to look up in the sky and see that satellite. And so since they're all tracked mathematically, they all have orbits that are predictable, I have these apps that anybody can go download on the App Store, there's dozens of them, that track satellites and give you a text message whenever one, usually right after sunset or just before sunrise, is going to be in view coming across the sky. And it tells you exactly what direction to look.
I've
Exactly
done that
what
with the
angle above.
space station. I've
Yeah,
seen
the
that. I've
That's
seen
what I
that
did.
go.
I showed
I know.
I showed my
Andrew.
kids. I showed
Yeah.
my kids the ISS when it came by. just the
Right,
other
and
day
it's
from New York.
always a bright light, and it stays a bright light
No.
even after the sun goes down.
No, it doesn't. It only happens right at.
Can I ask you a question, Andrew, that has nothing to do with the flat Earth?
What?
Is it hard to change your mind about something? For example,
No, I
used
used to believe in aliens, and now I know that it's bogus.
That's weird because I don't believe in religion or anything else, but I still question what UFOs are. But that's for another show.
Well,
But-
UFOs are
but
just
for
high
example,
technology
For
that's
example,
being hidden
for
from
example,
us.
you do understand that YouTube is the bastion of conspiracy. For example, loose change, which people would go, "You got to see this. The government blew it up." And it's like, no, that's somebody's opinion, and and all documentaries are trying to sway you in one way or another. But is it tough for you to change your mind about things?
Absolutely not.
No? Okay. All right.
How thick is the Earth?
Now you were
in
showing
there?
your water bottle, and what was that you were trying to
No,
do?
my whole I was joking because he, the astronaut, what's your name again?
Richard Garriott.
Richard was holding up his bottle and trying to explain. So please explain why
We call
the
him.
moon
We call
is
him Astronaut Rick, by the way.
why astronaut Rick is the
He's mad.
moon illuminated edge to edge when it has a light source, which is the sun. And when you're talking about a sphere, you would always have a dark trailing, where the light is
I
not
think
hitting.
so I think here's my interpretation of your question, which is if the moon was the diameter of my water bottle and there was a truly single point light source that was fairly close to it, that it could only illuminate, say, a quarter of. If I put it really close to it, it's only going to illuminate, a small amount before the tangent of the light can't illuminate the sides. Is that what you're suggesting?
And right, and what you're going to now say is that because the moon is way over here, all of a sudden the tangent doesn't exist?
No, no.
BS!
No,
That's
But
not
you
science.
know that
man.
but you know
I
that
didn't
the-
finish. Look, I just framed your question for you in a way that would be understandable.
Okay.
Let me answer it. Which
A
is,
sphere.
first of all, not only is the sun very far away, which pushes the tangents quite far out to the edges, but also the sun is not a point light source. It is 3 degrees approximately of your view looking out. The sun is quite large despite its distance, and so that's why if you look at the shadow of your finger on the ground, there's something called an umbra and a penumbra. In fact, just by chance, I happen to have a different diagram here that's showing you the darkest, the completely shaded part of the shadow behind an object goes narrower behind it, but because it's 3 degrees wide, there's a widening shadow behind it. So you can light the limbs of it because it's not a point light source. The sun is a wide.
But wait a minute.
I'm not buying that at all.
Just the last few minutes, we thought the moon is a light source.
That's what he thought.
No, that's what he
That's
thought.
what I
Okay, and that's why you see you.
No.
The sun is so much larger than the moon. We're not talking about a flashlight. that we're
Right, and
pointing
there
at
must be,
something.
you would have to illuminate the sides, the backs, to fully illuminate an object. Do you know how many light sources you would need? So I'm not
One
buying
sun.
it, I'm sorry, that's not an answer.
Yeah,
It's
but the
not an
sun-
answer.
But it
The
is
sun-
an
the
answer.
sun-
It's just an answer you're not buying.
The
You
sun-
understand the difference.
Hold on, the sun is quadrillions, I don't know, another number brighter than anything else. It's
But
what
it's
heats
not
our
its
planet.
brightness. But it's actually not its
It's our
brightness. But what illuminates the full limb of the moon has nothing to do with its brightness. It has to do with its diameter. It's because it's not a point light.
Gotcha.
It's because it's wide, and so it acts like a a bank of lights that have parts, some of it lighting from the left and
It
some
must
of it
be
lighting
like a
from the right.
flat screen TV that's curved and then comes around the side.
Andrew,
like
what
this.
was the one
It's a
thing?
joke.
What was the one thing that's you can't listen? You can't have a scientific argument by saying
By
something's
saying
a
it's
joke.
I
But if
agree.
you snap, what was the thing that snapped in your head and said you believe this? The one thing.
Well,
you remember
okay,
that point?
so the curvature calculator that we are told, based on the curvature of our Earth, so for the observer, it's 8 inches per mile squared. So it's a formula. Okay, so if a boat is 10 miles away, that's 10 times 10. 10 times 10 times 8 is equal to, that's 800 divided by 12. That's 66 feet. 66 feet of drop that we should see, and that's why we're told, well, boats go over the curve around 8 miles because they're gonna be gone, right? So how is it that boats that are 50, 60 miles out, 30 miles out, we're pulling them back with the P900?
So first of all,
You can't answer.
yes, you can. So first of all, the experiments people try to do on either side of the subject by taking a photograph of things that are very close to the surface of the Earth are problematic because of the viscosity, because of the atmosphere itself.
Yeah.
That they will provide a lensing effect, and so just like mirages show up in the desert,
Yeah, yeah.
you can see those sort of things. But for example, there are parts of the Earth where where, for example, on Lake Pontchartrain.
Wow, so that is just atmospheric distortion. So Soundly posted that. This is Soundly. He's a ball earther and he's a big YouTube guy.
Oh my God! Like
Ball
a ball
golfer.
golfer.
And this is wow. The Earth
By the way,
is
you
so curved. I mean, I thought when
but
we
you can
went
go
up in a
walk out there.
balloon and
Hold
airplane.
on.
Hold on.
The engineers who made that bridge had to make adjustments
Yes.
for that bridge to go over the curve.
This
Exactly
has already
right.
been
So
debunked.
so
it's
hold
so
on.
flat.
So
it's
the
ridiculous.
let me ask, so the engineers who built the bridge over Lake Pontchartrain, which I've been over, they're part of the conspiracy to make it curved.
No, engineers never. They don't take into account the curve of the Earth. You can talk to any one of them. It does not.
You talked to a lot of them.
I've got a phone
Talked to-
number.
talked to lots and lots of them.
512-834-0937 if you're an
He's
engineer.
He's holding up a picture of Lake Pontchartrain. Look at that curve. Hold that up for Matt. Show everybody.
Yeah, man.
Look at this
Yeah.
curve. That's
Right.
that's over just a few miles. Wow, the Earth is curved. My goodness. So no, something else is going on here because we know that
Okay,
the
so
Earth is not curved.
What
that
I'd
much.
like to move to
Is it disappointing to know that you never went to space?
Yeah, I know, man. I spent all that money on nothing
Yeah.
to be fooled,
You've wasted
or
a
to
ton of
join,
dough,
or to
dude.
join the
Did
Illuminati,
did
to
they
join the
roofie
conspiracy.
you? Were you roofied?
So what I find
Yeah, for
interesting
for 2 years he was roofied training.
when people have these complicated to construct belief systems that are obviously, reality is internally self-consistent. You analyze things from a wide variety of angles and you'll ultimately come up with the same answers. Anything that is less likely to be true is harder to square all the data together when you take it in totality. Obviously, the vast majority of humanity believes the Earth is round, and the vast majority of them believe the Sun is the center of the solar system, et cetera, et cetera. And so when people make a claim, like, for example, that astronauts are all part of the conspiracy, and therefore I am, for example, part of this conspiracy, which I'm sort of honored to be considered part of, you have to go like, well, okay, well, how big does this conspiracy have to be? Not only is it the 500 people that went to space, but it has to be the tens of thousands of people who helped put them into space.
Same thing
Their,
with-
It's gotta be
their
the same
families
thing.
and friends.
It's Gerald
very-
Gerald Posner's book about the Kennedy assassination. I used to believe there was a.
Okay.
I sat and watched the movie that Oliver Stone did, and I cried, and I go, oh my God. I read Posner's book and his sections about conspiracy theory and how many people would have to be able to keep the secret
forever.
for it to leak out, and that's
Including-
why most conspiracy theory is flawed. Not yours, Andrew. I'm talking about all conspiracy theory.
But it also just goes like, think about even our enemies. Why would North Korea and Russia and all these other people, be happy to help keep everybody with the Kool-Aid? They obviously they think that their national interests are somehow better served by letting America claim that it landed on the moon, which of course they did also with probes and rovers, including the one I own. It's just the layers to which the conspiracy has to go, including your satellite television providers have to all be part of the conspiracy. Your cell phone providers all have to be part of the conspiracy.
No, they don't. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
Why do they have to be a part of it? They're just using the technology.
Using which technology?